I'm Hawkeye. Boy, you're gonna be foot up ass boy pretty soon here. Beware of spoilers. Hey friends and soon to be friends. It looks a little empty here because I'm in the process of moving, so sorry it looks a little boring in the back. Today we're talking about Matt Fraction's and David Aja's Hawkeye. It has 22 issues and 1 annual. Matt Fraction and David Aja also worked on the Immortal Iron Fist, which is also another really good read. I believe Matt Fraction co-wrote it with Ed Brubaker, and that's how I first heard of him, if I recall, and that was the first time I ever really saw David Aja's work, which I really enjoy his art. And when I read the Iron Fist, there was a joke in there about Hawkeye, so that was kind of funny, especially since later on Matt Fraction went to write Hawkeye. So this is actually one of my top Marvel series just because it feels very different than the usual superhero stuff. It's more down to earth, and it's more about his life instead of his superheroing. Yeah, there's some superheroing in it and there's some fighting and all that stuff, but it feels more like a slice of life to it, and it's just fun. It's nice to see what superheroes do when they're not working, and that's what this one really focused on. And out of most of the Marvel series I've read, I think this one would work best for a weekly series. Even in the first issue, they make an Iron Fist joke, and then later on they make a few more where Hawkeye would be like, wait, I'm an Avenger. And then they'd be like, who are you, Iron Fist? And he's like, what? No. It does have a lot of humor, and that's a good thing because Hawkeye is a funny character when you write him to be, and I think he plays better as a humor character than anything because honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Hawkeye. So whenever I first saw this, I was like, I don't really want to read it. And then I saw some previews. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of like this. So then I was interested and I read it. And I'm like, yeah, this is really good. But it did have delays also, which kind of sucked. And I remember 1 or 2 delays being really bad. And one of the worst delays it had was at the end of the series. The next Hawkeye series by Jeff Lemire started before this one was even ended, which is kind of crazy. In the series, like I said, it's very humor-based, and a lot of characters call him Hawk Guy, and he always corrects them Hawk Guy, and they're like, no, Hawk Guy, and it just keeps going on. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a funny name. So it reads very much different than other superhero stories, which really leads to how great and creative it is. And issue 7 was about the hurricane that happened at that time, and it was really great because there's no superheroing. It's just Hawkeye going with one of his roommates that live at his building and helping them get their dad out. And it's just a really heartbreaking, really well done story. And the whole series is like that. There's some moments where it's really sad, but it's written so well. And Matt Fraction really knows how to work with emotion. And then the artist, which most times is David Aja, but sometimes it features other artists. But just the art that they put around in the story, the panels and everything just amplifies the writing and just really gives it a sense of drama and heartfelt, and it really helps the book. It had a lot of emotional parts and a lot of fun parts and a lot of action. Like, they really did well on mixing all the aspects of a superhero comic, and it's a short run. And like I was saying, it shows a very human side of a superhero. I mean, he is human and he doesn't have powers, and they kind of play that off a lot. I feel like we don't get that a lot anymore with superheroes. It's all like they're fighting the big bad or trying to stop the end of the world, and that's how it always is, or big epics. And this one was like, no, this is his life and this is the daily stuff he has to deal with. And I think that's really cool, and we should get more of that. I mean, this series sold really well, if I recall. Another thing with the human side is Clint is not perfect Hawkeye. He's not perfect at all, and they really play off that. Like, the people around him are just like, yeah, he's not reliable, like, he's a good person, but he just sucks sometimes, and they really play that off well with his ex, his now girlfriend, some random girl he met, and they just all mostly show just how bad he is and just kind of how much of a wreck he can be, and he is a wreck in the comic. And the art's great. David Aja is beautiful art. He really knows how to make the panels work and work for and against it, like showing less, showing more, and showing sequences of action, minimalism, like art's amazing, and it featured some other artists for like some issues, not like long running like Aja was the whole time mostly, but they had some fill-in artists, and all of them were pretty good. The art was pretty spectacular the whole run, which is awesome for a 22 and 1 annual issue run. The color for the art, I don't know who colored it, but I think David also colored it. It was always great. Sometimes they would use a lot of color showcasing something, and sometimes they'd really dull it down to be minimalist. And the color was amazing. I don't really know much about color and all that stuff, but the way they structured this was just beautiful. And even on one of the trade paperbacks, it kind of shows like the way they did the art and the way they did the colors. Granted, I'm not very high knowing in all that regard, but from what I saw, it was really awesome and takes a lot of work and had a beautiful outcome. I would say every issue was great. I can't really name one issue where it was worse than the other. Like, they were all phenomenal, but I could name one that was one of my favorites. Issue 11, which is all done by Pizza Dog's perspective, who was a dog that Hawkeye got from the Mafia. It's funny because this whole issue kind of goes around Pizza Dog and how he sees everything and how he interacts with everything, and I thought that was really cool. And when it came out, I remember everyone went crazy and loved it, and a lot of people love Pizza Dog even still. Like, he was a main character by the end of it, just how much everyone loved it. And just the issue where it was just featured him, I actually bought 2 of that and gave one to a friend, and they loved it, and they don't even like comics. So that issue did really damn good in my eyes. So it also features Kate Bishop, and I honestly never knew who she was beforehand because I never really looked into Hawkeye that much. And she's like the second Hawkeye. I believe she filled in for Clint at some point. And she's actually featured a lot in this comic. So in the beginning, she's kind of side featured, and then she tangles with Madame Masque. I probably totally said that wrong, so I'm just going to call her Madame. And it's only one or 2 issues that kind of do like a little arc, and then it seems like it kind of just, whatever, we're not seeing her again. But then Kate gets her own few issues, like after the annual, like it goes Kate, and then Clint, then Kate, then Clint. And the trade paperbacks, they do it in order, which is cool. But so she has her own little part where she leaves town and moves away. And that was really cool because it showed her side, and I never cared about her before because I never knew who she was. But then after reading this, I'm like, oh, I kind of like her. And it shows her dealing with Madame and getting in this trap, and then just everything coming out of that. I'm like, oh, so a few issues focus on her, which I thought was really cool and a smart choice. And then she comes back at the end to help Clint protect his building. The cool thing about Kate and all the other characters, like, they never felt forced or anything. Like the side characters that live in the building, Kate, Pizza Dog, and any of the Avengers that get like name dropped or brought in for an issue or 2, they never felt forced. They always felt natural. Like, it felt fun having them in there, and it did show that it was connected, but it never had any tie-in issues for anything else, which was great because tie-in issues sometimes really kill me. And it felt like its own little place in the Marvel Universe, but still we had people cameo that felt normal and just felt like an everyday superhero. Like, oh, I'm friends with Spider-Girl, Captain America, and they're going to come and hang out and watch some TV or something. I'm like, oh man, that's really cool. And then another issue that's really good that stands up there with Pizza Dog is Hawkeye number 19, where Clint became deaf again because he was deaf before, but then he kind of got it fixed. He became deaf again from an accident the issue before. So in 19, they have him speaking with like panels of him doing sign language and all that, which was amazing. I don't think I've ever seen this in a comic, and that was the first. And I'm like, dude, this is really cool, and kind of breaks it up and shows just what medium a comic can be, just how far we can go with comics and different things we can do with comics. And I'm just like, this is beautiful. And the whole series, when it was coming out, I don't ever recall anyone dogging on it other than the delays, which happens, but everyone was sad about the delays. But everyone loved every issue that I've ever talked to, and it's honestly one of my highest recommended Marvel comic books. It's just great all around. Story-wise, great, which I haven't really talked too much about the story because I don't want to spoil it. But if I'm giving a brief synopsis, it's Hawkeye buys the building from these Russian gangsters or whatever you want to call them, and they say bro a lot, which was pretty funny too. And they're trying to buy all the city around the city block to do whatever they're doing, but then he goes in and sees it's having trouble, so he's like, here, I'll buy it, and then kind of butts them out, and then they want revenge on him, and then a bunch of other superheroes want revenge, so then they hire someone trying to ruin his life and all that. So that's just a super quick synopsis, because I really don't want to ruin it, because it's really good, and it's just filled with humor, sadness, happiness, action. Like, the action is great, and this is one of those comics I could not praise enough. Like, even if I know people who don't like comics, I would highly recommend them reading it. And if they were ever to make a TV series, it would be really cool if they based it off of this one. I didn't really read any of the Hawkeye series after this, so I don't know if they carried any of the plot points, but it felt like the story really wrapped itself up nice and easy, so there's not too much lingering, but there always is in comics books. This is a really good read that I would highly recommend if you enjoy Hawkeye, or even if you don't enjoy Hawkeye, just a normal comic, a comic without supers or anything, because it felt just normal, and it felt great just seeing a day-to-day life in him, and the panels and everything were just gorgeous in it. Like, they know how to tell a story in these. So as usual, if you like my stuff, let me know. Like, subscribe, all that stuff if you enjoy it, and keep coming back for more. My next one's going to be a big episode. And if you do go out and read this, tell me what you think, or if you have read it, let me know what you think. If not, have a good one, and have a good week, have a good month, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.